All right, we're going to go ahead and transition here a little bit. This would normally be the time to help with the transition that we would say, why don't you turn and greet someone? We won't exactly do that, but I guess you can look around and wave at some people. Man, it's so cool as you guys were showing up, seeing so many of you guys that for the vast majority of you, I haven't seen in a long time. So it's really good to see you guys. For some of you guys that even have moved to Austin, I've seen some of you guys, and it's just and further. It's really, really good to see you guys. And it's weird because it's this bittersweet moment, right? You know, it's this time that we're gathering, and it's so sweet to see all of you guys here. But you know, it's also a challenging season. It's also a sad time. You know, we're excited to see one another. We're excited for a new chapter. I'm excited for our new leadership, for Kelly and the team. There's a lot I have to be excited about, but also in an honest moment, there's a lot that I'm grieving over, and I'm sure there's a lot that all of us are grieving. 2020 has brought its share of that, both in general and specifically. For me, I'm grieving what has become a home for us as a church. I'm grieving the loss of a building and this property, and grieving this transition, and that's something that we need to allow each other to kind of have space to grieve. There isn't necessarily kind of a right or a wrong emotion to be feeling right now. Whatever you're feeling, it's okay. I'm still continuing to grieve the loss of dear friends, partners in ministry that aren't here. I'm grieving those loss of some friendships and relationships, grieving the loss of a dream of mine to be able to partner with you guys in this way. Honestly, pastoring this church has been one of the greatest honors of my life, and literally a dream come true for me. I've loved it. I loved it when it was hard. I loved it when it had its challenges. It really has been an incredible journey, even despite all the challenges. So it's a mixed bag for me. We as a community are closing a big chapter today. And that's why I was so grateful that we were able to do this, have this kind of final moment, a season of a time of closure, a time of kind of turning the page on this chapter and closing this chapter. But I'm also excited that on the other page exists a new story. Not a brand new story, but just the beginning of a new chapter for all of us. So wherever you're at today, it's okay. It really is. I want you guys to know, wherever you're at, whatever you're feeling, it's okay. If you're angry at what's transpired, it's okay. So am I. If you're hurt over the loss and pain that we've experienced, that's okay. So am I. If you're confused about how all this could happen, it's okay. So am I. If you're also excited for what could and will be for this new chapter, for Kelly, the staff, and the boards, and for all the new voices that will be amplified moving forward, so am I. If you're excited about hearing more women's voices, black and brown voices, queer voices, voices from the margins finally being given opportunity in the church, so am I. So am I. So it's okay, this mix of feelings, this kind of mixed bag that all of us are experiencing. I need to be honest with you guys. As I got ready for today, I found myself at a loss of words, which is pretty uncommon for me. It's not often that I really don't know where to go and what to talk about. And I don't know what you do in a moment where you're saying goodbye to something that has meant so much to you. I don't know what that looks like when you make that transition, when you walk away from something that you've literally done for your entire adult life. And the past few weeks I've thought a lot about that, but most of all, I've thought about this past 8 years. The past 8 years that Icon has existed. See, 8 years ago, Kelly and I and our family moved down here with a team of people, and it's been so awesome to see some of those faces out here that started this journey all those years ago. And I found it a little ironic as we were listening. See, before we ever launched services, we moved here about 8 years ago and spent about a year and a half kind of serving the community, and then started public services right directly across the highway at Texas Old Town. But before we ever had our very first launch service, we did something called these preview services. And there's a few people, if you were here for some of the first preview services, could you go ahead and raise your hand so that people can see those people that were here at those first preview services? And it's ironic that this service probably looks most like that, with worship on a cajon and some acoustic guitars and some voices, and it just brought me back to that moment. And this past week, as I prepared for today, I did something that is a little dangerous. If you're a pastor, I went back and I looked at that very first message we gave at that very first preview service. Before we launched, preview services were a way of us kind of testing the waters, kind of seeing, do we know how sound works? How are we going to manage kids in their spaces? And that very first preview service, I went back and I read over that message because I was just curious from where we've come and where we're going and where we are right now. And as I think as any public speaker, looking back at your messages from almost 8 years ago is a little dangerous of a thing to do. Usually it finds you a little embarrassed. When I think back to my very first message, I just thank God that was never recorded. There's like one or two people that I know of that probably know that message, and I'm just glad that has been lost to antiquity. But I thought back to this message, and especially for someone who's gone through a transition in their faith, if their theology has shifted a little bit, it's a little scary to kind of look back at some of those things. I know Kelly and I look back to different years of our leadership and kind of grimace a little bit at the thought of the ways in which we led and the ways in which we've changed. And I look back at that, and I thought it was so good for me to look back at that first message. Because that first message, I think, can speak to us and where we're at today. Though it was risky, I went back and I read those words, and it brought me so much joy, and honestly, it brought so much healing to my heart. Many of the prayers that we had for this community back then have only recently come true in these past few months, and it's been beautiful to kind of see that transition. You see, in that very first message, I kind of started with a question that I think is appropriate for today. I asked this question, I said, what is a Christian? You see, I talked about how easy it is to define labels that we give ourselves and others. We all know what a European is or a Guatemalan, even occupations like a doctor or a mechanic. If I were to ask you, what is a doctor? I think we'd all be able to consistently answer that question. But I think if we polled America right now, if we polled our community, and quite honestly, if we polled all of us sitting here today and we asked you that question, I think we'd probably come up with some different answers. You see, if someone came up to you and met you on the street and asked you if you're a Christian, what would your response be? And let me just ask you something. Would you ever feel the need to kind of qualify your response, right? Where you feel like that answer has kind of lost some of its meaning, that you feel like you need to say yes and this, or yes, but this. I could say that's true for me in this season. I've needed to think about what it means to be a Christian. We talked about how this term came to exist. It didn't exist at the time of Jesus. It didn't exist for the early church. Christians weren't called Christians until many years later. In fact, it was a term given to followers of Jesus as a way to kind of mock them, saying they were kind of like little Christs. They were trying to be like this Jesus who claimed to be the Christ. It was like the way in which, and maybe a few of you might know this term, maybe, I don't know, Dino, followers of the Grateful Dead were called deadheads, right? In that same kind of way, it's like they're called Christians. Before that, they were called something else. They were called followers of the way. They didn't know what to call themselves. Their communities didn't know what to call them, but they watched the way in which they lived, and they just said the way they live is just different. They're followers of a different kind of way. Until those very first followers of Jesus, they were called disciples. And disciple is a term we don't use a whole lot, but disciple is different than a student. As a student simply just wants to know what the teacher knows, right? In school, we just want to learn the right answer and we can get it, but a disciple wants to actually become like their master. It's someone who watches closely their leader and says, I want to become like you. Not just know what you know, but actually become like you. It's holistic. It envelops everything. And ultimately, we got to the point in this very first conversation where he talked about what matters most. What was the most important thing for a follower of the way? What was the most important thing for a disciple then? And we read and focused on this one verse, and it was something that was brand new in their time. It was a new law, a brand new command that they were given, a new way of being human that Jesus introduced into the world. We find it in John's account of Jesus' life. In John 13, verses 34 through 35, it says this, "A new command I give you. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." Church, that's it. That right there is the greatest command. If we can do that well, that's it. That's all we need to hold on to. And I asked this question, and as I read over my notes from 8 years ago, it like jumped off the screen at me. It was a question that I feel like as a church we can finally answer yes to today. And I asked this question of this fledgling little church meeting in a wedding venue in very simple ways, and I asked this, I said, are people shocked by the way you love others? Are you in a community with a group of people that is marked by mutual love, respect, submission, and servanthood? Icon Church, this is who we are. This is who we've finally fully been able to live into. No, we're not perfect. Yes, we'll continue to make mistakes, but if we do anything well, may we love well. And then I wrote these words I'd simply like to read for you today. These are the dreams that we had all those years ago. This, at our very first preview service, this is what we said we wanted to be true of us, of Icon Church. We said this is what Icon is about. We believe that everyone is created in God's image, that there is inherent, intrinsic value to every life. You see, Jesus, this man of love who sacrificed everything for us, he is our example and leader. And because we believe that, if the church is to represent God, represent this man, then we must be marked by love. And I said, what if? What if Icon became a place marked by love, respect for all humanity, mutual submission to one another, and servanthood for all? What if we were a people that aimed at being disciples of Jesus and not just the status quo that is often Christianity? What if, like the early disciples, we lived in such a different way that our neighbors and communities and city took notice? What if, like the early church, we grew and disciples were added every day? What if we could change this area? We could change the lives of the people we're in relationship with. And now as I look out at this community, I look and it becomes so clear. Church, we don't need this building. Like, we don't need this land. We need each other. We need community. We need family. But we don't need property. Sure, it's nice, but it can also distract us. It can also hold us back. Now listen, I am not one to say, see, God did this so that you wouldn't be tied down, okay? And if that's where you find yourself, if that helps you, that's great. Please, especially today, don't at me with that. Like, I really, like that, not going to be helpful. However, though I believe God didn't do this, I can look at the good that can come from this and that will come from this. In fact, one of the greatest blessings in the season has been those that have found us online, that has found this beautiful, loving community literally from around the world. Later this evening, we'll host this live stream, and I can't wait to see our new family that lives all over the world. So to those of you in Wichita Falls, to South Africa, from Arkansas to South Korea, from Tennessee to Spain, we see you. We love you. You are wonderfully and beautifully made. God made you just as you are, and you are fully loved and fully welcomed into our church family. You can't see all these people right now, but know that they love you. You see, though we didn't anticipate these changes, though we never saw this coming, and though it has brought pain, I do believe that God can make beauty from ashes. I saw God do this for me when my faith broke apart. God made something more beautiful from that pain. So I don't say this to be dismissive of the pain that we're feeling or to downplay it. More than anything, it's a statement of defiance, a statement of hope. In this moment, hope is an act of defiance. And one of the greatest ways God will do this is through our next pastor. She served as co-pastor from before day one, but today she becomes the sole lead pastor of Icon Church. And church, we couldn't have a better leader and a better pastor for this next season. Kelly, I'm so honored for you to be my pastor. Thank you for stepping up and leading through your pain. Thank you for seeing a more beautiful tomorrow and having the courage and the faith to lead us there. I couldn't be more excited for the days that lie ahead for Icon Church. I genuinely believe that our best days truly are ahead of us. I also firmly believe that we need you now more than ever. We need your voice. We need your help. We need your presence. So please don't think that just because we don't have a building, we don't need your help, your service, your support. We actually need it now more than ever. Kelly, the staff, and the boards of Icon all need you so much. So please, if you're able, stay engaged, offer your support, and lean in moments like this. And finally, I'd like to, in closing, talk to you about what I pray I've accomplished personally, because it's secretly been a wish for all of you as well. Again, I know I'm not perfect, and I know you won't be either. And it also happens to be this prayer that I have for us as a church. It comes from an ancient Hebrew prophet telling the people of God the ways in which they should live. This may not come as a surprise to some of you, but it's found in Micah 6:8. It says this: He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God? Church, may we do this. May we continue to do justice even when it costs us, especially when it costs us. May we continue to fight against injustice. May we continue to speak up. May we continue to say her name, Breonna Taylor, even when it costs us. May we be clear that at Icon Church, Black Lives Matter. Let's stand for the margins. Let's speak for those. Let's amplify the voices of so many that have been silenced. Let's give them the opportunity to speak. May we love mercy. May we look around and know that there's always room at God's table. May we celebrate the lengthening of God's table, even when that celebration causes others to walk away from our fellowship. May we remember that our Christian LGBTQ siblings have always been at Christ's table. It's Christ's table. It's not ours to set the place. It's His. And may we walk humbly, not living pridefully that we have it all figured out, but rather knowing that we're still imagining God imperfectly. We still have so much to learn. And to close, I'd like to end with a prayer of benediction. It's the prayer of benediction that I read at that very first preview service. And may those words I prayed over this community be prayed over us once more. But to do that, I'm going to ask our new pastor come up and pray this prayer. So Kel, would you come up and pray this over all of us? And good luck.
Man. At least it's written down, so I don't have to God, we thank you for all you've done and all you're doing in our lives and in our community. May we look to you for all of our needs. Jesus, may we look to you as the ultimate example of life. An icon, may we be people marked by our love for one another. May we be known by what we are for, not what we are against. May those that feel far from God feel our love, respect, and honor in tangible ways. May we be known for our service and charity. May we serve those that are unlike ourselves. May we love when it's hard, serve when we're tired, and give when we lack. May we be disciples, followers of the way, followers of Jesus, and not simply Christians. May Jesus' words ring true of us, that the world would know that we are disciples by our love for one another. And may we continue to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with you. Amen. Oh, you're done. Okay. Oh yeah, you can clap for him. Can I just say how good it is to see all of your faces? I remember back when COVID first hit, and I just kept thinking about the day when we would have like the first gathering again, and I knew that I would be a mess. Little did I know like how much else would be involved in our first gathering. So forgive me as I weep up here as I talk to you, but I just want to say that I love you all. It is the honor of my life to serve you as your pastor. I'm so grateful that every single one of you found this place, and that we are one another's family, and that we're going to pursue Jesus together, and that we're going to make this world more safe and just for everyone together. I'm so looking forward to this journey. We have no idea what's to come. Dan, when we talked about, he said he was going to get up, and then he was like, have me get up afterwards and kind of talk about the future. And to be real honest with you, number one, it's cute that you think that's all I'm going to do up here. Because, we've got some stuff to do for you that you don't know about, but it's about to come. So, but also there's a lot we don't know. There's a lot I don't know. We're figuring it out. I feel like we just made this decision 5 minutes ago. So we're trying to wrap our minds around the newness of everything that's going on. But we will continue to be praying and planning and just really looking forward and letting you all know as those plans come and what things are going to look like. But there'll be plenty of time in the next, coming weeks to be able to talk about that. But today is a day when we want to honor you. It feels like words fall really short for us to be able to communicate to you what you mean to all of us and what your leadership has meant. The sacrifices you've made, what you've given of yourself to make this dream of Icon a reality. I live with him, so I've seen what you have walked through, and I've seen what you have given up, and I've seen the pain, and I've seen the suffering, and I've seen what you've had to go through over the past several months. And I said this when Dan first made his announcement about his resignation, and I still believe it with all of my heart today, that you choosing to become whole and to do what's best for you, it is the bravest thing you have ever done. And you guys, sometimes in church world, it's really difficult for a pastor to step away because there's this pressure that if you walk away, then you're walking away from the call of God. It's like this big magical thing that we put so much pressure on people. And so for you to say, I'm going to choose what is best for me and for us and for our family, that is so brave. It is so brave, and I'm so proud of you for that. And today there's a few people that just want to have the chance to be able to come up here and tell you from their heart what you have meant to them. So we're going to do that. And then we also have a gift for you, but we can bring that out in a little bit. Okay. So first, I want Adam White to go ahead and come on up.
All right, allergies are bad, so if I tear up, it's horrible. I didn't know we were honoring Dan this morning. I thought it was more of a roast. So, now my name is Adam, and I'm a volunteer here at Icon on the staff, and I'm also a board member. And I've had the privilege to be a part of Icon since the beginning, when we started off in Dan and Kelly's living room. What can be said about Dan that you guys don't already know? Most of it's inappropriate, so this is going to be really short. I first met Dan in 2006 when my wife Stacy when Stacy joined a leadership college in Austin. I only saw Dan a few times between 2006 until we moved down here in 2012, so I didn't get to know him that well. When we moved down here, some of you know that we were scammed out of our stuff with our moving company, and we lost everything. And I remember being so mad at God and so mad at this company, and just kind of expressing to Dan how I just hated these people, and that I can't believe God would allow something like this to happen. And I had so many harsh feelings for God. And Dan drove me down to the San Antonio airport to go back to Maryland to see what we can recoup. And as I expressed all this to Dan, I thought, man, he's going to judge me. He's going to bring correction to my life. He's going to tell me that what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling is wrong. And what he said to me was very different. When he spoke to me, he said, I think God is big enough for you to feel those things and for you to say those things. It wasn't profound, but it was truly a game changer for me in my faith walk, and it made me open up to Dan's leadership. That day, he helped to start change my small learned view of who God was, and it wouldn't be the last. Through these last 8 years of Icon, Dan has helped change a lot of my small and skewed perspectives of God and the person of Jesus. And I would like to think the same of all of you here in these last few years of how Dan has kind of changed our perspective on how God really is so big. Through these last 8 years, you've helped me, Dan, change a lot of my skewed perspectives. I'm absolutely grateful that you have helped bring more clarity to my faith walk. You guys see what I did there? We're all sitting here today because Dan has invested into someone's life, and it made a difference. In the beginning of what is now Icon, Dan would encourage the startup team of Icon to connect in the community. Our goal was simple, to help people be more like Jesus and to serve with no strings attached. That's still the mission of Icon today. Before we existed as a church, Dan joined a networking group in San Marcos, started an after-school program at an elementary school where we talked about Jesus openly. We served the community in various ways to include apartment parties, river floats, volleyball games at Sewell Park, handing out food at music festivals, amongst so many other things. There's so many things that I can say about Dan. He seeks to be more like Jesus. Not only does he seek to be more like Jesus, he brings others along his journey and they become more like Jesus. Allergies, right? He is a man of integrity. The way that he is on the stage is the way that he is in the garage working out. The way that he interacts and disciplines his children in public is the same way he does it at home. The way he treats Kelly is probably terrible, but I'll let her talk about that later. Joking helps me get through this, sorry. He sets the bar high when it comes to making sacrifices for the greater good. He chooses 100% of the time to honor people and to always assume the best about everyone, even if it's clear that he is being treated unfairly. Dan pushes himself and others continually become better versions of themselves. There's not a better man that I know than Dan. In closing, I want to thank you, Dan, for all that you've done in my life and the life of Icon. You have helped expand me to see the way that I see God in the person of Jesus. You've done that for our church. You have truly changed my world perspective and my personal world, how I interact with people, how I see people. And you've commissioned us so much, so it's funny that you tried to commission us again and got Kelly to do it today. But I want to remind you, Dan, I got you this little globe, that you are a world changer for all of us here and literally around the world, as people over the last 6 months have tuned into Icon to hear what you and Kelly have to say. You have literally changed our world perspectives and influenced the world in a literal way. I want to encourage you to continue to be that world changer, that influencer that I know you will be. Thank you, man. I love you. Next up is going to be Amanda. She wants to come on up.
It's a tough act to follow. No, so you guys know that the story of Icon is about 8 years old, but the friendship between me and Dan and Kelly is about 17 years old, which makes us really old. But also, I first met Dan when I was in ministry school in Austin, and the ministry school that I was a part of was going to split, and half of them were going to move to Louisiana. And some were challenged to, move on with their lives if they wanted to, or go to college and all that. And then I remember my old director saying, but if listen to the Holy Spirit, and if the Holy Spirit guides you to stay, then stay and champion the new leader. And I made a very brave and scary decision at the time. And pretty much 50 people left Louisiana and 10 stayed in Austin, and I was one of those 10. And I said goodbye to all my friends that I had spent 3 years of ministry school with, because I felt like God was calling me to stay in Austin and champion that new leader. And it ended up being Dan and Kelly, and it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. Because 17 years ago, I met two people that changed the way I looked at church, that changed the way I looked at leadership. I think we both did brave and scary things. I stayed and you came to Austin, and that is brave and scary, all the way from Illinois. And at that time, the church culture was not big on women in leadership, and you did a brave and scary thing, and you believed in me when people didn't believe in me, and you empowered me, and you called out gold when people wouldn't do that for a woman who wanted to be a leader in the church. And it meant the world to me, and we spent so much time in meetings, in staff meetings, offsites, in church world. I remember so many arguments about why I couldn't wear shorts to church and things like that. And you never gave up. I remember sitting and crying in your office so many times about things that I thought were so unjust, things that I thought were so wrong that needed to change. And you sat there and you said, yes, I know, I see that, and I hear that. Let's do this together. And that was the first time in my life that a pastor had ever said, I see you, I hear you, let's do this together. And those same moments that we shared in your office during our accountability meetings, that has been you from day one. From the first time I met you to even now, it's I see you and I hear you, let's do this together. And through a long series of years, we have done brave and scary things together. When I told you that I was ready to take a brave and scary step and move to Seattle because I wanted to minister to young people there, you said, let's do this together. And you paid for me to go on vacation to visit and see the area and pray for the city. You believed in me. We stayed in touch that whole time. You came and visited me when I was in a near-death experience. You came and sat with me in my rehab room, and you sat and you said, I see you and I hear you. Let's do this together. And it meant so much to me because, unfortunately, my family didn't even make it out for that. And you were my family when I needed family. And you've always been that. And you've never stopped. And the same person that you were when I first met you 17 years ago is still there being family. When I moved back to Texas and you kept saying, Amo, come back to Texas and serve with Icon. And I kept saying, I'm not ready yet, I'm not ready yet, I'm not ready yet. But let me help you because we can do this together. I'll give you what you need. I'll give you resources. I'll help give advice. I'll do whatever. And I remember walking into this building for the first time when you had just got the building. And it was funny because you said, Amo, if this was your youth ministry, what would this space look like? And I remember saying, I don't know because I'm not the youth pastor and I feel really bad because I don't want to dictate something for somebody else. And then 4 years later, here I was in a space creating a place for everyone to belong, for young people to belong, for kids, for babies, for teenagers, for young adults to find a place where they could be seen and heard and move through ministry and life together, to do brave and scary things together because you taught me that, because you taught me what it was like to love people no matter what. And on days when I don't have the grace, you have the grace. You've told me so many times how to have grace for other people when that's not my instinct. You've taught me how to have compassion for people when I wasn't able to look beyond the margins. And you brought me to that place, and that legacy lives on. And I remember the moment that you told us that you were going to be stepping down and resigning. And I thought, okay, this is another brave and scary thing, and we're going to do it together. Because if it's something that I've ever learned when I served under you, it's that, number one, Christians don't belong in a building, they belong in the community. And number two, you don't need a title to be a leader, because God calls you to lead the people and point them to Jesus with or without a title, because that's who we are created to be. And so forgetting those four walls and stepping out in this community, we are family, and we're going to do brave and scary things together, no matter what. I love you, and I'm so appreciative of you and everything that you've invested in Kelly. I'm so excited to continue serving under you, and I know that all this journey, these years that we've spent together are not in vain, and will continue to grow and to impact the city for God, and I'm grateful for you. And I don't know who's next, but Jonathan, I love you so, so much. So, so much.
I remember about 20 years ago, I was a freshman in high school, and we were having this party at my house. It was for the youth group, and I wasn't really involved. And this guy showed up in some ripped jeans and some Doc Martens and an Abercrombie sweater, and some blonde tipped hair, strapping young lad. And that was the night I met Dan Matlock. That was 20 years ago. You've been someone who's been by my side today. You've shown me what it means to be loyal. You've shown me what it means to demonstrate unconditional love. You've shown me what it means to be a good friend, to be a good father, to be a good husband. I'm emotional because I'm emotional because I know that I'm different because you are in my life. I know that my family is different because that you are in my life. I'm grateful for your friendship. I'm grateful for your leadership. And I'm so glad that I've got to live my life with you up until this point. Thank you for everything you've done for our church. Thank you for everything you've done for our community. Thank you for the example you've set. As we continue to be more like Jesus, I think we can all look back at the examples that Dan's done, the way that he's led, things that he said, things that he's done in his community, and use that as a compass. Thank you for your bravery. Thank you for being true to yourself. Thank you for when everything is stacked up against you, you stay true to you and no one else. And we see that and we honor that today. Thank you, Dan.
Hi, Dan. Man, everybody loves you so much, and I'm one of those everybody's. Okay, so I wrote it down. This is really special to me. So, Dan, I could say a million nice things about your leadership. You radiate warmth, your sense of humor puts people at ease, and your sincerity shows every time you preach. In one very important way, your leadership has helped me profoundly. I've been a Christian for 42 years. 42 years. That's not when I was born. That's been since I've been following Jesus. And attended 12 churches. 12 before Icon. In each of these 12 churches, I've had to make a very painful choice. Either I get to learn about and worship the Jesus of the Bible, but accept a very clear message that as a woman, I'm less important and much less able to lead. Or I can find a church where I'll be treated as an equal human being, but can no longer hear Bible-based teaching about the transformational power of God's love shown in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. As my pastor, you are the first male leader in all these 42 years that both deeply cares about following Jesus and honestly values me equally as a woman. To hear that from you, Dan, from a male pastor who truly and deeply loves God, has been one of the most powerful experiences of my Christian life. Thank you so very much.
So I don't know how to follow that. So I'll be brief. A couple of things that I've seen in you from very early on. I can't say that I go back 42 years with you, or even 17 years. Is closer to 17 months with you. But of the things that I have seen, you must have really been an amazingly fun person to be around in college. I can imagine you just standing up and saying, okay, you bring the chips, you bring the pizza, you bring the beer, I'll bring the party. Because that's what you bring. And what's incredible about that is that most people with that kind of personality, it's all about them, and that's not you. You make this not the Dan Show. You specifically and deliberately bring in all kinds of people from different genders, different backgrounds, different walks of life, different colors of skin who are standing up on, because it's not the Dan Show. And that's something that I have really appreciated about coming here and being under learning from you as our pastor. I appreciate that you appreciate people who are not wired like you, among the people not just visibly different, but people who think different, and that you have always tried to keep them. And I think one of the things that's been most meaningful to me is the fact that you talk about your struggles, that you are real. Being real, capital R, is rare. That's, I guess, also a capital R in the Christian community, and that you have done it, that we can be a church where it's safe to be a ragamuffin. And that's something that, my feeling is that churches should be hospitals. It should be the place people want to go. But instead, too many places, that's where you go to get kicked and drive-by versing's. But not here. And I want to say to everyone else, having worked closely with people in Christian leadership, not here but in the past, if your leadership is not having trouble, it's because they're not kicking Satan in the pants, right? Somebody who is really trying to do good work for the kingdom is going to have trouble. And if they're not showing it, it's just because they're not showing it. So pray for them, support them any way that you can. Double down on helping Kelly, because she's got double the load now, and she's going to need all of us. Not that she can't do it, but she's got twice the target on her back. So we need to step up as believers to help. Thank you, Dan.
I wrote this down on my mini teleprompter here because this could go south very fast. I don't want that to happen, and you don't either. Well, Dan, it's been a great ride. Last few years, I can't tell you how much what you've done for us is just a super friend, a mentor, a business partner, and a pastor. You've been totally awesome, and we just appreciate it, all you've done for our lives. Just never imagined it would become so good friends in just a few years. It's been awesome, and I know that'll continue. I mean, this is not a eulogy completely, so I understand that. But we will dearly, terribly miss you. I pray that God will lead you and guide you on your next journey in life, and I know that you'll be successful in anything you do. I mean, you're just the person that's going to be successful. Thank you for being my pastor. Thank you for being my friend, personal friend. And for being honest in God's word. That truly means so much to us, that the honesty that you've had with us has been tremendous. We will continue, you'll continue to be in my prayers as God leads you just wherever he calls you. And I know you're not done with God. You'll be there and you'll continue to answer God. And thank you for touching our lives and being our friend.
Hi. I didn't write anything, but it's written in my heart. The journey that started when we came to the church, that I didn't like the name, so I didn't want to come. But Roy insisted to come in, to go in the church. But I can imagine when we came, and my expectations, I didn't have that many. But it's been awesome. The journey, I won't change it for anything. I'll take it with me and my family and the family in Mexico that you touched the hearts, and Kelly. Those will stay with us forever. They will never, ever change, ever. The love that we have for each other, the four of us, the love that you talked about earlier, this is the love that we have for each other. That God already had the plan for us, for the four of us, to know how good it will be and is going to be in the future. That love that you can experience and you cannot find on earth, but it comes from heaven. That love that you talk about, there's the love that we found in this church because of you two. The love that me and my family, that I shared with them in Mexico and here, that's the love that we found through you. And when I think about it, I think about always be more like Jesus, not like anyone else, but try to be like Jesus. And this journey, yeah, the page maybe stops right now, but there is a new beginning, better, even better than before. The future, nobody knows the future, but God knows. It's already written for us. But that love that we find in you guys and each other, that will never go away. That will stay with us forever. Nothing will take it away from us. Thank you for being in our lives, in the life of my family. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for your patience. I know that we all have kids running around, but Dan, we love you. And there's, for those of you that weren't able to come up and share, there's a box over there to drop cards in. There's blank note cards if you want to write one. Amanda, do you want to go ahead and bring Dan his gift? We got you a gift, just a small thing, just to say we love you, we appreciate you. And here in a second, the band's going to close out with just one more song so we can kind of have just this experience of closure, saying goodbye to what has been, but also looking forward to what's to come. And Dan, I just want to say, it's so bittersweet, It's like there's, like Nicole said, all of the feelings, and we're holding all of them all together. But I'm so thrilled for what's next for you, but also I'm really, really going to miss doing this with you. And I think it's okay for me to be sad and excited at the same time. So just thank you. Thank you for all that you've been to all of us. We love you so very much. Okay, I'm done.
I can't. I have to say something. I'm sorry. I'm too talkative not to say something right now. I think I can't look at Dan either, so I'm gonna just focus over here. I have learned more in the last 8 years than I could have ever imagined, and it's weird because when we were singing See a Victory earlier, I think one thing I've been really, just to be gut level honest with you guys, one thing I've been extremely bitter about over the last few months is I feel like bad guys are winning, and I feel like misinformation is the main information, and I feel like there's all this disunity and we don't look like the church and like all these like just stuff. And I think the last few months it's just been like kind of learning that the victory is just, it's what Jesus said all along, is that the way down is the way up. And it's like, why didn't I believe Jesus the whole time? That when I've said this to this church before, not so shiny, but oh so bright. Like, I feel that at a deep level. Like, Dan, you have been not shiny, which is the best thing I could say about you. You have intentionally been honest when other pastors would hide. You have intentionally had integrity when it would be easier not to. I know things you could say that you literally hold back on, and it is the best model of leadership I've ever seen up close in person. And it has caused me to want to have more integrity as a human being and to not be scared about actually having meaningful conversations, even if we can't agree or even if we have different perspectives on something. I've been more challenged in that way in this community than I've ever been anywhere else. And so as a church, and we just honor you, man. I'm so grateful for your friendship. I'm so grateful to be up close. And I think, at least for me personally, like I've seen the victory the last 8 months, man. Like, I know it's hard for you. I know it's been hard on us. I don't know how else integrity is actually built. Like, how do we actually test the integrity of something unless you test it? And, like, you've been tested, man. And I'm just proud of you. And the common denominator can just be Jesus. Like, we don't have to agree on everything. And unity over uniformity is possible. And I know that now. I don't know how I'm going to sing right now, but we're going to try. Oh, Nicole wants to talk too.
Sorry.
Let's do that.
I mean, you gave us microphones. Dan, I met you when I was 15 in a small group called Portico. which is weird. I'm no longer 15. Surprise. You have saved my life on multiple occasions. When I wanted to just throw it all away, or didn't feel like there was room for me anymore at the table, you continually said there's plenty of space. And you've lived like Jesus, and again, it's not a eulogy, but you have been a huge blessing to my life over and over and over again, and your friendship, you're not just a friend, you're my family. And so I'm so grateful that you're taking care of yourself, and that gives us room to take care of ourselves, you know. So thank you. Thank you for your honesty, your integrity, and your friendship. I love you. Now we can sing.